and to share with your community and to share with the world. So some of the things that we do are publishing, but we also teach, mentor, and embrace the art of creating publishing arts. So editors, desktop layout folks, anything that has to do with the production of a book, we actually have tried to find a way to navigate supporting folks who do those things. We actually have an event coming up, and I want people to, as you move around the room afterwards, like pay attention to some of the items that's on the tables that our guests have brought, but then also pay attention to some of the information about the Gibbons collection, about In Black Ink, about embracing our roots, and More Than a Single Story, which are the 3 partners. But thank you and welcome, and you will enjoy this conversation. Anytime an elder and a younger person sit down together, we know magic is going to be made because the story is going to continue. Thank you for being here.
And I'm Carolyn Holbrook, and I'm director of More Than a Single Story. So our mission is to position the literary arts as a catalyst for cross-cultural healing and social justice. We connect BIPOC writers with broadly inclusive communities through readings, through publications, public conversations, and writing workshops that foster insight, empathy, and literary skill building. I did mention a publication. We do have an anthology called We Are Meant to Rise that features 30 people within the communities of color who wrote about the George Floyd murder, the pandemic, and lots of other topics as well. So we are very, very grateful to the voters of Minnesota for grants from the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council and the Minnesota State Arts Board for their support of embracing our roots. I'm excited to announce that with funding from the Jerome Foundation, More Than a Single Story is about to offer a mentoring program for Black writers beginning this fall.
Yeah.
So please stay tuned. Excuse me. It will be up on our newsletter pretty soon. And you can follow us on our website and all of our social media that was up on the screen a little while ago to keep up with all of our events. So a little bit about embracing our roots. Shortly after the murders of George Floyd and Dante Wright, a little organization called Black Table Arts invited small groups to visit their new space that they had put together in South Minneapolis. And it was lovely to hear their director, Kino Evo, and his team of young arts activists speak with pride about their reverence for the elders and the ancestors, and to see quotes from literary ancestors painted on the walls throughout the place. But it struck me while they were talking that these beautiful young people really didn't know much about the history of the arts here in Minnesota. They just didn't have much awareness about, the things that Davu has in the collection and lots more that we, that came before them here in the state of Minnesota. So I invited him to join me in designing a project to educate young arts leaders on the significant milestones in Minnesota's Black arts history. And it turns out that Raquette and Anura CSR were also in that group of people who were touring that day. And I thought, we should invite them to join the effort. And they said, oh yeah. And so the result became the program that you're seeing today. And rather than just featuring esteemed elders and culture bearers, we decided to invite conversations between an elder and a young leader to discuss the issues and the topics from both of their points of view. So in this way, the program encourages intergenerational dialogue and engages audiences in in-depth conversations about how we all survive the storms and keep creating. Unfortunately, Black Table Arts is no longer with us, but when I learned that Davu was becoming the curator of the Gibbons collection, it was like a no-brainer to ask him to join us, thereby still ensuring that we would have 3 Black-led organizations running Embracing Our Roots. So yeah, I'm so excited to be here with the Gibbons collection and have Kevin doing that involved with us. So since the program's inception in 2020 maybe, we've had several pairs of elders and and younger people talking with each other. We've had Professor Emeritus John Wright. We've had Alex Pate, Arlita Little, and Alana Scope, who started the Givens Foundation's retreat program. We've had Mary Easter, we've had T. Michael Rambo, we've had the wonderful Zulu family, Notanda, who we've lost, and Usi. In conversation, these were people who were in conversation with younger folks like Alana Morris Van Tassel, who was a dancer, Adebise Wilson, who worked with Alex Pate for a while, Brittany Delaney, who we've also lost, was in conversation with Professor John Wright, Genesea Williams with Mary Easter, and Jasmine McBride had a gorgeous conversation with T. Michael Rambo, and of course, Joshua Gillespie, who was also known as Brother Ashe, had a conversation with his grandparents, the Zulus. We also offered 2 programs with Asian Americans who discussed the issues that they're having in their communities. So I'm thrilled that today we have Elder Amoke Kubat. Did I say your name correctly? All right. And as she calls her, Elder in the Making, Wisdom Young. And next month, on April 20th, it's still going to be a Saturday from 1 to 3 here at the Givens Collection. We're going to present 2 couples, who was Raquette and Anura CSR. We'll be in conversation with elders Setu Jones and his wife Soyini Guyton. So please come back to that and check all 3 of our organizations, because we all got a lot of stuff going on. It's just really exciting, and I'm just so excited to be here. So to introduce our speakers, Amoke is an artist and a spiritual culture bearer who is curious about the self, the natural world, and the sacred. She reclaims an African indigenous spiritual sensibility to reconnect herself and Black people to earth and water as practice for holistic wellness. She is the creator of Yo Mama's, the Art of Mothering workshops, and Yo Mama's House Cooperative. She is self-taught in the arts of weaving, doll making, clay, and writing essays, short stories, poems, and plays, and to continue to define herself and hold a position of wellness in an America sick with inequalities and inequities. Wisdom Young is an artist, an educator, an activist, and a mother of 3 divine children. She is co-founder and executive director of Black, Bold, and Brilliant, a North Minneapolis-based organization that inspires and empowers Black youth and families to tap into their purpose to shape a better community. And she is the recipient of many awards, and her poetry has been widely published in anthologies and literary journals. And, I could say much more about these 2 amazing women, but I'm just going to sit down and let them tell you their own stories. And then we'll have time for questions after, and we'll have time for refreshments. You'll have time to view what Davu brought out here for us. Please keep your food on that side of the room.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll repeat that later. But in the meantime, let's just welcome Amoke and Wisdom.
Welcome. I think we want to start today with just gratitude. I know that I do. I want to thank all of those partners in Black English, with the Givens to the University of Minnesota, and certainly Professor Carolyn Holbrook, who invited me to be a part of this awesome opportunity. How often you get a chance that just have a conversation. And when she told me what it was about artists, I was like, oh, I know someone who I have a lot of questions for. I'm very curious about. And I had the privilege of working with Amoke in our Givens Writers Retreat twice. We did it twice over a decade ago now. And so I'm grateful to be here with Mama Amoke, our elder, and all of you here. Thank you for coming today.
And I am certainly glad to be with you. She is, when I look at wisdom, I think of, hey, we're passing the baton to a world, to the people that are going to pick up the baton, who were dedicated, who are connected to ancestors. And I feel like I gotta lay down. I don't have to come back and ghost. I don't have to come back and do that great to get it even going. So I'm really excited about this. I'm very excited to join a community. I'm not from Minneapolis, although I've been here almost 40 years. But I came in here saying, where's the Black people at?
Mhm.
And ended up going to St. Paul and then in North Minneapolis. And then wanted to know where was the arts? Yes, you know, what are people doing when it's creative? Started at the foot of the mountain, which I didn't know was not a Black space. Got into the penumbra, intermediate arts, and just kind of started thinking, I don't want to teach anymore. My whole family taught I always wanted to be an artist, and came here. And, you know, after 40 years of teaching, I'm finally at the place where I am making art. I am in the community. I am seeing where we're standing on the shoulders of mighty people in the cities, and I think we need to tell these stories, write these stories, act these stories, get these stories out, because there are people following us. No one ever comes first. Someone is first and somebody comes behind. So it's a circle, it's a cycle, and it's a spiral. So thank you for coming out. It's a beautiful day, and it could be any place else, but you're gonna be with us, and only knows what the conversation is gonna go like with us too.
Good. I hope they go to some unexpected places.
You know me.
Yes. And that's why I asked for you. So first, I just want to call some ancestors. What ancestors do you want to call in the space today and acknowledge and call in here with us today?
I'm going to call in my grandmother, my mother's mother, who I believe is always with me. Her name is Emily Hooper Raspberry. So it's Emily Hooper Raspberry. Emily Hooper Raspberry. Emily Hooper Raspberry. I'm also going to call in Zora Person because I went to get my BA in creative writing. I had a teacher that said, man, I know somebody just like you. And I was struggling so hard to get this BA degree and had a child, a small baby, who's sitting here now in the green. And I took her to school with me when she was 4 months, and between us, we were cutting up and just having school. So it was hard walking up to this Hollywood Hill, a beautiful place that I was not sure where they wanted to put me. And I took a feminist writing, feminist studies class, which I didn't know what feminist studies was. I just knew that something to do with writing, and a lot of writing, and a lot of artists. And I was given this book, something about this. Oh my goodness, I can't think of the whole title. But I know I love myself when I'm laughing, but then again, when I'm looking mean and impressive. And this person said, this is you. And I thought, I got to read a book about somebody that's going to be like me. So I read this book and became an honor with Dora the person who received her as my affinity ancestor and my guide around writing. I also was very, very grateful. I'm a type of person, if I think of something, I do it. I used to write to Alice Walker. So I wish I had kept her letters, now see this how you archive things. But she was very, very instrumental because I said it was a maybe, you know, what I was doing. But she encouraged me to write. So I would just say, hey, those are the ancestors for me, is Orla Hurston and my grandmother, like her mama. And you?
All right. One of the people that I want to bring into the space first is Lucille Clifton. And the poem, and I think that embodies why we are here today. Won't you celebrate with me? So I'm just going to bring her in by reading that poem. Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model, born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed.
Yeah.
Yes.
But ancestor. I also want to bring in some of my family members that are always with us. So I want to bring in my grandmother, Charlie Mae Williams, who was a matriarch of a poor family in Natchez, Mississippi, and passed so much wisdom to my mother so that she would be able to pass that wisdom to me. I want to bring my daddy, Maine, who they called Maine, who I found out later was a poet when I went back and went to a family reunion, and somebody was bringing out old family reunion books, and he had wrote a poem in one of the family reunion books, and I said, oh, we are his people, we are his children, this was in us. But I didn't know my father passed away when I was 14 years old and lived in Mississippi. So I didn't know that part of him, I should say. My grandmother, Bessie, who passed away in 2022, who was a sassy, sarcastic matriarch. My grandmother, Florine, who planted seeds of sweetness and wisdom and respect and humbleness. And my auntie, my crazy auntie, Bug, the wild one, the funny one, the ass whooper. Mama Nintendo, the mischievous one, the storyteller. My Aunt Anne, the serious one who took care of business. The one who is my North Star, Harriet Tubman. Only an ounce of the courage of that superhuman, I asked for. Toni Morrison, Gloria Naylor, Maya Angelou, and Langston Hughes. I first read a Langston Hughes poem probably in 6th grade, in mostly a white class in Eagan, Minnesota. And my teacher, he would try to catch me off guard sometimes, and I would be ready. I would be ready for him. But I was grateful that we were reading this curriculum, and Langston Hughes came up. And when I was so surprised, I was like, oh, this is about me. This is about us. And it's done with reverence and respect. And we are here being taught. And so I really just admired and was so grateful for Langston Hughes communicating and expressing the stories of Black people with so much dignity and reverence. And so that really inspired me to want to write. Yeah. So where do you want to go? Is there anything that you want to read right now? I don't want to be the one leading the conversation.
Well, I find the contrast between your background, the Southern background, and I was in Southern California. So it was a totally different background of, we lived in a segregated community, but I wouldn't have thought it was a segregated community. It was my whole world. So to see myself on TV, or see anybody Black on TV, that was a whole different world. My father worked for a fantasy world, he worked for Arab Spelling, so I just knew the Cowboys, and I just knew the Addams Family, and I knew that if I begged hard enough, I could go spend some time with him in a 53-room palace.
Wow.
And get lost and get into adventures like told not to look at the beast with the 5 fingers, and they had a house where the deer could come into the house and the antlers on the wall like a hand that was murdering people. And I screamed so loud that I had everybody in a single bed. So I had actually slept with Ernest Spelling, Carolyn Jones, my father, and a dog. So my life was always kind of a fantasy world, and so I wanted to write that. So after being Ernest Spelling, and then seeing being on the lots, I was like, I want to do that. I want to write. So I was told that I could not, I didn't have anything to write about. Black people did not have anything to write about. I was told women did not have anything. I was told by people I thought loved me, like my parents and my teachers. So I stopped writing, and it's kind of hidden. So all my writing was kind of under the cover, and it was kind of cryptic because I made my animals, I made people into animals, and they were. So anything I had to figure out during the day, or any argument, or anything I didn't like, or anything I wanted, became a story. And what I stopped doing, I said it. So at some point I talked, I've always spoken, at about 2 years old and stuff. And I stopped. And then when I got to school at times, because I went to probably 17 different schools as a kid, I said I was still shy and so timid. I would just look at you, my eyes were kind of crossed, and my eyes were light, my hair was not, black textured hair. So I would always, and it was teachers who noticed that I had these skills. So I wanted to write a song, and a teacher said I was going over to piano. She's from church world, and she made my tune up, and she figured it out. And I sung a whole song about bluebells, and I didn't see a flower called a bluebell in my life. But she said, okay, write your story. And then it was, I had a teacher, because make me talk, she would put me in choir. I've never been able to sing. And they would move me so far from the mic, I'd be almost outside. And she would stand there and go, she's in choir because she's learning vocabulary. And they were like, okay, the other teachers, okay, well, my teacher was Black. So they said, okay, we'll just put it as far from the mic. So I've had teachers that, came, always tried to do things for me. And one teacher saw that, once I started going to movies, I was in love with the Beatles, and it was a hard day's night, and I decided to put me and my girlfriend in the show and in the story. And so the teacher always saw me writing, And she said, what are you doing? They would say, what are you doing? Do things I was doing. I'd write a script or write a story, and I would make people pay for it to read because I wasn't getting we call it a allowance. So I made people pay me $1 to read my little chapter books and whatever my stories were. And then they want to be put in the book. Okay, put me in the book too. So I would write them, and so I got paid, so I didn't have allowance. So it's kind of economical. And then the second thing is I didn't stutter when I read the stories. So pretty soon I didn't stutter at all. So I've always had people to kind of support me in my writing, but I was still very timid about it. I came to the Twin Cities based on, I'd done some work with Susan Lacey out of the Twin Cities, did a thing about the Black Madonna, which opened my eyes on how interesting performance could be, how powerful performance could be. So before we left Los Angeles in 1987, my daughters and I were a part of this living sculpture at the UCLA. So when I thought you could use performance in other ways, I thought I'm going to do that too. So I don't have to really kind of be on stage, but I can see my words. So I came here thinking I was going to do that. I came here thinking I was going to work with friends. None of that happened. I had to take my butt back and do a real job and start teaching and start taking care of my family. But I always wrote. Fast forward to ECFE, where I was working with children and mothers. They were looking for the crack baby coming, and never did. Got the meth baby coming, and just not figuring that out. But the bottom line was I was able to use my writing skills to do my work, and I would hide that until somebody's mother died, and they said, I'm reading this book, Motherless Daughters, and the minute I looked at the book, I started crying. I thought, what are you crying about? And I didn't realize that I did not have a mother, and I thought, I need to do something about this. So I started writing. I wrote my story, and my story became Missing Mama, which I worked out a lot of stuff around not having a mother, but I also have always gained a lot of mothers based on my girlfriends, based on somebody down the street that mothered me, and it's become my work. So I can hardly separate what I do and who I am from what I am. And the answer is in the present part. We have got to heal. We have got to get it together. We have got to tell our stories. We have that inside of us. And to write it down, sing it down, dance it down, film it down, paint it down, whatever you have to do that. So that's what I'm excited about. So I'm excited when I see a person that is talented as you and funny as heck. One of my favorites to talk about the things that were kind of like sometimes kind of not damaging, but they weren't as pleasant, like getting our hair pressed. Who on earth wanted to do that stuff? Was frying in your ears and sizzling, and sometimes the hot comb was swinging by your head, hitting your forehead and your ear, and sometimes landed in your lap. So we look at that now and we kind of cry, but that's from that we could not show our real hair. So we're telling these stories of healing, we're writing these stories of healing, and we have the shared history of these things. But as Black people, we're not monolithic. As women, we're not monolithic. So this is important to have this space. It's important to tell these stories.
Absolutely. You touched on so many things. I remember you saying something about when you were writing your story, you tried to make them cryptic. You used animals. And I thought about Brer Rabbit and the history of Black people, and even the Ashanti spider and our connection to our African heritage and that storytelling that way that we teach through animal characters. Yeah, that's fascinating. The other piece that I wanted to ask you about, when you were selling those stories, how old were you during that time period?
When I started writing?
When you said you were charging people to read your story?
Oh, I was a teenager.
You were a teenager?
I was a teenager. I was probably, I went to 4 junior high, so I think I started off in maybe the second year in high. I remember Ralph Bunch, I remember Ralph Bunch, and that was the way I made my money, and it was a way that I gained respect and had a role. I wasn't the pretty one. I think the first time I tried to wear a mini skirt, and the thing that they were wearing, 60, I was kind of a chubby kid, and you need to wear stockings with mini dresses, mini skirts and things, and I was at school and I wanted to read my story, and I sat down and I went to read my story, and I got through reading, and there was a great applause, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do, and I wanted to stand up, and how, I don't know if you know, but flesh and sweaty, with the plastic seat, and I made this, and I stood up. And one, being at a boy said, "Oh, this is all in me." So I remember my heart was open and happy in 1 minute, and I went crashing through. Please open up the ground, God, open up the ground and take me. And then all of a sudden I was laughing, and then everybody was laughing, and I realized laughing with someone that was, I don't think he was trying to hurt. I think he was class clown.
Yeah.
And I could have said, okay, this is gonna hurt me. I'm gonna hide all my stuff. I'll never read again. But once I started laughing and everybody started laughing, it was like, we all understood that. We all understood that moment. And I did not feel like, okay, you're that bad. Okay, that was that horrible thing. And I continued to write. So that was kind of that was it.
That reminds me, shout out to Shantae, who was somebody in the high school that used to write stories, little salacious stories that she shouldn't have been writing at her age. Remember, she did that. So she could be a writer, but yeah, we were like, past that, we reading this in our class, the little notebook from Shantae, so shout out to Shantae, she's a writer too. Were you gonna ask something?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, when did you start writing?
Okay, good question. So, other than trying to appease my mom and, make these cards, these heartfelt cards, I think I really started writing. I remember maybe that 6th grade, right? Like when they gave us an assignment. But the stories came before that, before I ever started writing, right? I didn't think of art and writing as a profession. I didn't know anybody Black that was an artist, right? I knew people that my mother was a housekeeper. My grandmother was a domestic, right? And so they've been surviving, right? And so, but my mom and my auntie, Elizabeth Williams, she lived with us a lot of the times, and she struggled with mental illness, bipolar, at times. And so, they were like a duo. And my mom growing up was supposedly the shy one, pretty, and my auntie was the wild one. She was gonna let everybody have it. She didn't take no crap. She was gonna crack jokes at everybody's expense. She was that one, right? And she was not even 2 years younger than my mom, but she was my mom's protector. Because my mom was in a shell, right? And so they would tell these stories, and to see them kind of tag team, my mom telling the story, and really why I appreciate stories so much is because my mom is like this very reserved, serious person. But then when she would start telling the stories from back in the day and in Mississippi, she would light up. She's really the person that inspired me, because I saw that light in her when she would tell these stories. And she took such a pride in like where they came from and how they, she said it like it was shameful, but there was joy there when she was telling these stories. And so to see them tag team and kind of tell their own versions, now that ain't how it happened. This is what happened. Well, it took the, and so my auntie sneaking into like the opposite school's football thing by marching into their parade lines, taking a jersey from somebody, and my mom taking the money out of it. So, like them, because they've been hustling, been scrapping and scraping. And so just to hear these stories is really what deposited that seed, although I didn't think about it as a profession, that's something that you can do, right? And then when I got exposed to Langston Hughes, I was like, oh, wow, this happens, Black people, right? People read it and listen, and we need it because it's so important. I know how it made me feel. And so just having that opportunity in schools at different times when there was a challenge, I would just, try my hand and they said, write a poem about, an inanimate object or whatever the case is. So that's kind of meeting those challenges. And then in high school again, I think I really wrote the first poem that I really felt, being exposed to Maya Angelou and Poetic Justice, even the movie Poetic Justice, just kind of like that revelry for Black women, for Black womanhood. And so just started writing that way and being exposed to books. My cousin had came up here from Mississippi as a teenager, Shay Cage. And so she would give her sister these books and we would read them. And so that really gave me an interest in writing, but how to be a writer, I didn't really know how to do that, right? I was a mother since I was 19 years old. But I figured out through my girlfriends, my sister circles, us talking, us building who I was and who I wanted to be, and just exposure to, in Minnesota in particular, you have an incredible arts scene, arts community. So through my networks, through people I saw, the people doing things in the Givens, is really one of the first ways I tried to legitimize myself as I really want this thing as a writer, as an artist. So that first time we did Givens together, I was all anxious, submitting the application, and I wrote that Hot Combs and Hard Times there during that retreat, the Givens Black Writers Retreat. And just has been steadily taking steps to keep growing and keep building and taking opportunities as I see them, as they come up. So I think I'll just take a break if you don't mind. And I'll read some of that Hot Combs and Hard Times.
Love it.
Yeah.
You love it.
I jumped off from this journal entry initially. It is tangled, in fact, matted, defiant to assimilation's comb. It is high in cotton balls, tight in rolled black beads of caviar. It is static and elastic, juicy and dry. Hard to manage, but it is a unique, majestic crown in time and tender hands. It is my spirit. It is my hair. God damn, it must be hot in hell if it feels anything like this. I was sitting under the air conditioner at about 4 years old, trying to recover from another torture session. I wondered why God allowed me to be burned and why he made my mother think this torture was necessary. Like if I had just cooperated and held my head still, there wouldn't be a problem. Thanks, Madam C.J. Walker, for your contribution to weapons of mass child torture. The torture began with, come on, let me wash your hair. But somehow it always ended up with me being wounded, more physically than spiritually it seemed at the time. I would slowly walk to the bathtub as if I was a convict on death row, walking with this executioner to the gas chamber. Once we arrived in the chamber, the thought would cross my mind if I would make it out alive this time. Then my mother would kneel by the tub, and I knew that was my cue to surrender. Once in the tub, it seemed my mother intentionally let the soap get into my eyes. She might as well have taken the bottle of Johnson & Johnson no-tear shampoo and squeezed it directly into them. I screamed. My pleas for rescue from the bubbly poison threatening to blind me fell on deaf ears. The crying must have really irritated my mother because every time I wailed, she got rougher with my head and her words. I pleaded for the life preserver that was fluffy and most importantly, dry. And once I got it, I held on for dear life. My mother would snatch the preserver away as if she was disgusted by my antics. She probably was upset that I had the audacity to cry when she was the one that had to do all the work to manipulate my nappy head into behaving. It wasn't an easy task, as I had hair that was so thick, coarse, and rebellious, it often broke the combs that attempted to make it into a conformist. Looking at my hair depressed the Mississippi old folks, had them shaking their heads as we stepped back to some foreign land with bananas, monkeys, and wild Africans that lacked white instruments for civilization. They didn't need another reminder that we were not white and therefore we were different, which meant we were less in America. My hair represented to them and my mother everything that held us back, and they had to conquer it by any means necessary. My mother was serious about her job. She would make sure no one ever looked at her children and only saw some nappy-headed niggas. So my opting out of the process for self-improvement wasn't an option. After somehow managing to cheat death by drowning and blindness by poison, I followed my mama into our slither of a kitchen. I ceremoniously sat down in a chair beneath her substantial, thick, and shapely 5'6" yellow, slightly bow-legged frame. She blow-dried my hair roughly, and my head was tender for being yanked. When would it end? The cruelest part was saved for last, as she slathered my hair with blue magic, and then proceeded to take the blazing iron from the fire. She would hold it up to make sure it was good and hot, and sometimes she would remark, "Oh, wait, this comb too hot," with a giddy smile, while eyeing the iron with admiration. This was her great equalizer. I saw the smoke rising and began to quiver as the terror took hold of my mind and heart. She fried chicken at the back of my neck, and I cried, I begged, and I prayed all to deaf ears. Why? Why, God, do you allow the devil to possess my mother and take me to hell in a handbag with a hot comb and blue magic? When the devil had finally turned us both loose, I was consoled by an air conditioner with a fried scalp and a side of crispy ears. I quivered and knew that unfortunately this wouldn't be my last bout with this torture.
I escaped a lot of that. My dad, for some reason, did not want my hair to be straightened. So I would pull my hair as tight as I could in a ponytail and twist it around and somewhat kind of straighten where to school that way. And then when I come back home, I wet and let it go. So it would look the way it looked when they left in the morning. So I kind of missed that, but I only had like 2 strands of hair if I straightened. But I did have some of that experience.
What was it like growing up? So what time period was your girlhood in your teenage years?
I was born in 1950.
Mm-hmm.
And I am realizing now, I'm not 74 this year, I'm a miracle. I was born in 1950, I was colored, I was female, and the incubators were about the equivalent of a shoebox, a light bulb, and a heating pad.
Mm-hmm.
And I was supposed to be born in November, and was born in August. So that I'm sitting here at all, having Black family that somehow was able to pay to get me out of the hospital in 4 months is a miracle. And I believe in my family, that situation of me being born that early, because I think I was going to be Anna, Laura, Patricia, Ethel, Louise Davis. And they came up with Patricia Ann by the time everything fell out. That it's a trajectory of my life. It's the trajectory of what I've gone for and yearned for, and writing comes out of that. A lot of what was that like? I think because of that experience as an infant, that I've learned to be more internal than a lot of people do when people were external. I also, oh boy. Okay, there's old brains. I forgot the question.
No, you just like, what was your girlhood like? You told us about how you got into writing in particular, but we know you have this book, Missing Mama.
Right.
And so just navigating Black girlhood during the time period. So you were growing up in the 60s and the 70s.
In Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, California.
Right.
But you do have some Southern roots, right? Yeah.
I went to Texas, I think, a couple times in my life. My family was from Texas. So going to Texas was like, you see hot cold gel, it was like going to hell to me. I was like, I had no idea what kind of people these were. I couldn't understand my family. My grandmother's teeth sat on the kitchen table in a jelly jar. So I was.
Were you appalled?
Yeah, I wouldn't even ask for the hot sauce because I said you have to reach over the teeth. So I was like, I have no idea. We had an outhouse. You had to sit on it like this, or you fall through. At least I thought I would. Or you had to sit like this so you get your feet on the ground. I didn't know when you reach the ground. We had a hog. I'm not quite sure what we were supposed to do with the hog. I was afraid of everything country, including my grandmother. What was it? My grandmother could kill in a drop of a hat. So we'd be out in the yard and she'd have this big tape, this cauldron, this big, and she'd put it was a big black pot that she stirred clothes up in, and maybe dyed stuff in, and she'd be stirring, so that was witchcraft for me. It's like, okay, she got the sunlight to stir in this pot, chickens were walking around, you know, all been walking through, I mean, I had no idea. And I was like, God, I can't wait for this vacation to be over. So I will never forget that she was, you know, I was trying to get the eggs from the chickens, and of course, the chickens do not always cooperate. They can't peck, they can't flap, they make lots of noise, they poop. So they were like, give me a cat. I mean, I understand that, I don't understand these chickens. And my grandmother was storing clothes, and two little hapless chickens walked out, and she picked them up and one fell out and said, okay, I can do it. And the other one was like this, and it was running towards the fire. It hit the flames, came back flaming right at me. So I'm running with this headless, broken neck chicken on flames, screaming my head off, and my grandmother was almost peeing herself because she thought that was the funniest thing. Well, I was useless in the country, absolutely useless. I was afraid of everything. So that shaped like I'm never going to the country.
That's the chicken with the head. You running around like a chicken with your head cut off. That's what I.
That's right. So, and then we brought my grandmother to Los Angeles, and we had rabbits at the back of the garage. So I'm thinking all these beautiful little fuzzy little things are my pets. So one day I meandered back there to go see my pets, and there's this grandmother from the country with a cold hanger, and she's whacking the heck out of this rabbit. And I'm like, "You're killing my rabbits." And she said, "No, I'm cooking dinner." I'm like, "Who eats rabbits for dinner?" She said, "You've been eating rabbits for dinner ever since that." And I'm like, "This is going to stop killing?" So I was afraid to eat anything strange. I mean, cook, so it was, so that shaped my, like, please keep her in Texas. My family was, my mother and my father were gorgeous, so I only have pictures of them. I don't remember them together. But we live right off of Central Avenue, which was popping. So if you read any of the Rollins stories, that was my father. And my father and my stepmothers would go separate ways, not knowing that I was home by myself. So I grew a lot of rich fantasy life, taking care of myself at 4 and 5 years old, and having the TV, which is fairly new. We started off with 3 channels and we went off at midnight. So if they weren't there, I could be up to the TV goes off and the big RKO sound comes up, and they would never know it. So I just sucked in all that kind of fantasy world. I had great teachers. Most of my teachers were Black. I did not have any, my first 4 teachers, we were the first Black family to move to Inglewood, the woods down the wood, which is all Black. And I had never experienced prejudice before. I had never, this wasn't prejudice, it was straight out of craziness. Before in my life, my family was pretty much upward mobility, so I was left to take care of the step siblings. That shaped my life. My dad was interesting, who popped in and out of my life, would have these weird things like, "Oh, my daughter is not gonna ever mop a floor." I don't know what value that is, but that was his idea. That was my privilege he was giving to me. He mopped all the floors. "Oh, my daughter's going to the prom." Well, as many schools I went to middle school proms as well as no high school prom, but I went to middle school proms because that's what people had in Inglewood. And my father literally took me to the prom and danced with all the wallflowers. So that's, so I have very interesting experience. My experience with literature, writing, art with Black folks as the central core, or having the ability to do it and have done it, did not happen until I left the United States in the 60s, the late 60s. And I was sat down so often, so how a privileged, spoiled little African bitch I was. Wow. And I didn't know that because I didn't know what it meant. I did not know what I was missing. I was taught to be to simulate. I was taught to do that, but there was something that wasn't quite right for that because I was at school having to fight all the time. I had to fight all the time, and I wasn't a fighter. But when it got to the point where the racism and the craziness was so bad, I mean, we would be put off the bus for a white kid spitting on us retaliating. So I would have to walk 2 and 3 miles to go to school when we had a school bus, because it was easier to walk for 3 miles to go to school than it was to find a school bus and come home, that mom was told, don't come home with your clothes torn off anymore. My dad would go, the next time one of them honkies do blah, 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 jug them in the eye with your book. Dad, jug them in the eye. What do you want me down there doing? I was called Miss Cassius Clay after I beat the crap out of a jock who literally pooped in my textbook and smashed it and pushed it on my chair. And I got in trouble.
Mhm.
And then that's when I started talking about speaking truth to the power. I was like, oh, no. You think I pooped in my own book and here in the middle of assembly? Are you nuts? And so I started telling adults, no, we're not doing this. Because there was no family to come in to protect me. I protected all the siblings that were in school, and I didn't know this kind of craziness, this whiteness. I did not know it. So when I went to go in hindsight, to go back to a backside, to go to London and be told by expatriates and Africans and Pan-Africans and Caribbean people, my history, my culture, my this and the other that I had never heard of before. That set me off like, I want to know where did all the African people go all over the world? How did we retain what we have? We have a lot of retention of our culture. We have a lot of retention of our behaviors, our language. We even have words that we don't even know what language they come from. But I respect jazz musicians who kept a lot of the culture and kept a lot of the language. Like you can say, I'm Pep, I'm a hep cat, I'm pepper. And if you come from the word pepper, which is roll off, which means to understand. You dig, do you understand? So we have a lot of that. So that has been I think that shaped my curiosity, shaped my life, and I still love to travel.
Yeah, that's one of the things that impressed me and fascinated me so much. And I'm going to bring an ancestor, Brenda McDaniel, who was an avid traveler and who inspired me so much, my OG, into the space with that too. When I heard about you traveling, that's one of the things that impresses me so much, because coming from where I come from with my family, struggling to make ends meet, we didn't take vacations, right? We went back home. We had to drive sometimes for a funeral, or we just went in the summer. We caught the Greyhound bus and we went to go see my folks in Mississippi, in particular on my dad's side. A lot of them were still there, and so that was our extent of traveling. So hearing about how many of, like Bessie Coleman, going in the 20s, 30s, 40s to go and study in Paris to get her aviator's license. It's just Quincy Jones wanting to travel to Europe at the time when he did at like 14 years old. So hearing about you traveling to London as a young Black, how old were you when you traveled? How did that happen? How did this kind of world travel happen?
Well, part of my inner world, I also had pen pals. So I wrote to anybody who wrote to me. So I had, lots of people all over the world. So I was very interested in the world. I wrote Prince Charles. And I thought Prince Charles was writing back to me. They have a whole industry of, and see the lady in waiting is actually signing everything. So I really thought Prince Charles was writing to me. So I had an interest in Europe. I had an interest in history. And I had in the 70s, I worked at the German National Tourist Office in Los Angeles. Okay, I'm gonna keep it right here. They had an Egyptian installation at this particular space that the tourist offices was in the same building. And I knew the whole building because my job was to put periodicals into an envelope and give to people that wanted to go to someplace in Germany. So I gave the book with how to get a plane ticket, where to go, with the postal, all that kind of stuff. That was my job. And so I needed some more periodicals to do something. So I go down in the basement and I love it. There was 4 people in the office. So I was in a room by myself, happy all day, could have a radio. There was nothing to do. I could go to the central library, read as many books as I wanted to read. I could crochet. It was a perfect job. So I go down in the basement and I'm going to pick up my periodicals, and I know all the elevators and all the back things, like a labyrinth downstairs. And as I open up the elevator, there's Prince Charles with his entourage and all his people and whatever. So when the door opened up and I recognized him, I said, Charlie, why do you write me back? And of course, his detail of people go berserk. Who are you? Where did you come from? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I just got these periodicals and I'm doing my job and they're looking at me and they're on their little mics and everything. And he's laughing. And I was like heartbroken, like, you didn't write me back. So they're looking like, who is she? So I've always had those kinds of moments that kind of like, I just lived a world that was just different.
So you just booked, so you, that, it seems like that job kind of gave you access to know how to travel abroad.
No, how I traveled abroad is I just jumped up and left one day. I was so burnt out and what was happening in my life. I had a pen pal in Liverpool and I just thought, why not? Found out that my mother had left me some money. It wasn't a whole lot. So for about a year, I planned on how I was going to escape my life. I had a suitcase up under my bed and I put little pieces of my clothes and things I bought for my trip, bought myself an airline ticket. And one day said, I'm out of here. So I landed in Liverpool. She wasn't the pen pal I thought she was going to be. She had a fantasy life too. So after a while, me and her brother hung out and we just terrorized Liverpool. And so I thought, yeah, I just felt very comfortable traveling. And I traveled by myself.
How old were you when you did
I
that?
think I was 18. I was there when they put the man landed on the moon the first time. So sitting around with English people talking about American landing on the moon was pretty interesting too. Conversations about why do white people fight? Why do the Irish and the Protestants fight? Y'all all white. So, I didn't know anything. So I got a lot of education by my traveling, and people are quite friendly if you're friendly. So I showed up my Jimi Hendrix look and my moccasins and my headband and my afro out to here, and they accepted me in the family. One time I came home, I left in the morning, came home, and the whole block was out looking for me. And it was like, why are you guys looking for me? I'm not lost. We didn't know where you were. I knew where I was. It was just so different things. So that shaped my life of just. I feel like I'm comfortable just about any place where I'm at in the world, and there's always somebody that's going to guide you. My favorite place right now is Cuba. I went to the Honduras. In Honduras, I went with a friend who helped me navigate my walker and all the stuff I need to carry things in now. And we went to the Garifuna village. We actually went to the village where Dr. CB was. And this young man came up and literally kind of snatched my walker. Because as soon as I get off the bus, I gotta go to the bathroom. That's the first thing I say. And everybody started, he was like running me to where I needed to go. And the person that was hired to help me to do it couldn't keep up. And he turned around, the young man turned around and told the man, you don't know how to do this right. This is my black mama. And I'm thinking, here I am in Honduras. And here's a black young male telling this white man that she's my mama and I can take care of her better than you can. So I started to see the connectivity of it. I'm in Cuba, they think I'm Cuban. They start speaking to me in Spanish. I've been to Cuba 3 times. The last time I went it was interesting. It's different. I was there in September and I went in February. Cuba is having a horrible time with this blockade. Yeah. I could see the difference. I never have seen people digging in the trash. I have never seen people begging in Cuba. I saw it this time. But what happened that was really strange, and I'm sitting down waiting for some people to do their souvenir shopping. A woman comes up to me. I didn't understand what she said because she was just talking and walking and talking. And finally she stops in front of me. She has something in her hand. She kisses it, hands it to me. She hands me money. And the people around me said, well, that's a first. I said, so every place I went, people handed me gifts. Well, what they were handing me was history. What they were handing me was knowledge. I got a piece of sculpted wooden man. He's doing this. Like this, he's doing this. So when the artist handed to me, I looked at it and said, is it a man or is it a deity? He said, both. I said, so tell me about this. He said, this is a representation of an enslaved African on the boat. So he's like this. This hand over here, he's crossing his heart. The reason why his fist is up there, the hole in his fist, he is saying, I am carrying Shango, who would have had a double-headed axe to wherever I'm going. So that somebody brought the information about Shango over here and the double-headed axe. And so I started trying to think, how are we all connected in ways of our languaging, our arts, our thing? This is a piece of art. that women in Cuba, are beginning to do entrepreneurship. They're doing whatever they can find. They're making jewelry, making earrings, they're doing everything. And looking at, we did the same thing. We've always had a hustler economy.
Yes.
You know, so always have figured out how to do things. Oh man, they chased me down with my water bottle. I mean, no one asked me if you need to drink water, but they said, she's not drinking water,
Mhm.
you know?
That was one of the things, if I can pull that in, because I was gonna ask you this, but I got the chance to go to West Africa, Senegal and Ghana in 2019, when I turned 40. That was a gift that I said I was going to do, because for so long it was, I wanted this connection to it. I took so much pride in being of African ancestry, being Black. And I had talked about it so much, and I was like, I need to go and touch this land, see my people there, look in each other's faces. I need to know what that air is like over there. I need to do this for myself. So that was a gift I gave myself when I turned 40. And the arts actually allowed me to do that. So it was a grant. I think I had just finished a project called Our Space is Spoken For with Twin Cities Media Alliance and Forecast. We were exposed to grant opportunities with Forecast. And they had like a project development grant. And so I wanted to do something around that travel and that kinship and identity around that. And so it was just a $2,500 grant. I was trying to get the more money. I didn't get that. So then, being a hustler, being resourceful, I'm going anyways. So I started selling odds and ends, whatever I need. I'm like, I'll need this Facebook market. So I made it over there. That was that my first time traveling solo? Yeah, I traveled solo for 16 days total, back and forth, without my children. And that was a big thing. My oldest two were like probably teenagers, or my son, he was a young adult at that time. And so it was just something else to be in the world again. It was kind of overwhelming when I got to Senegal in the middle of the night. Okay, and thank God I had like a connection. Somebody I worked with is from Senegal, so she had somebody picking me up from the airport. I was like, oh Lord, what have I gotten into? Because the middle of the night, you bumping in the road, it was just pitch black, and I'm like, oh, where did I book this hotel? I'm randomly like looking up stuff, booking hotels. I'm just doing it kind of like on my own, kind of asking for stuff here and there. It was a fast turnaround, but I made it there. But in Senegal, in Ghana, one of the things I noted was the art making. I got this beautiful bowl. I went to the artist market in Accra, Ghana, and this young boy, 7 years old, is carving this beautiful bowl, and it's all this art around. It's an artist market, like it's nothing, right? And so I also talked to them about, like, they just shared with me like their crime rates, and like murders, and how rare those things are. And I just think about the healing aspect of art and how essential it is to us, especially as Black people and where we come from. And it's so essential to just have a way to express yourselves and be able to do something with your hands, whether that's, crafting words or carving bowls, just the essentialness of art. What is art meant to you? And how do you tie those experiences with you being a world traveler, a world citizen, and art together?
Oh, okay, well, I don't think it's a secret that I had a kind of a grassroots building called Your Mama.
Yeah.
And Your Mama, the Art of Mothering. Your Mama's House now, which is now it's not a cooperative, but it's going to be ran as a cooperative, and it's incorporated. So for 14 years, I have been working on mamas. I've been working on art. I think there's an art to being a mother. And I think mothers need to be uplifted, and I think mothers need to be recognized for their visible and invisible labor. And I think what we are not understanding the wealth that goes into mothering and in our DNA of the know-how and the wisdom of our families and our ancestors. Here's something I want to show you. You recognize it?
Yeah. It's a picture of a cat's eye hill.
I'll pass it around to read it.
Y'all know what a cat's eye hill is.
So it started off Yo Mama, the art and mothering workshops where women's work become art. So this says, I woke up to her daughter's scream. Returning to the bathroom, I saw that the very hot water was shooting from the bathroom sink. The faucet was stripped. There was nothing underneath to turn it off. We raced to find tools. Nothing we had worked. We called the landlord, people in our building, and finally plumbers. Even with money in hand, plumbers refused to come without the landlord's permission, and he was out of town. We were on our own. I remember going across the street, asking neighbors, could they come help, and you know, you have tools and all the things I need to use, alternative tools like nutcrackers or butter knives, nothing was working. So when I came back, it was all stopped. The daughter was quiet, he wasn't yelling, I didn't hear the water, I was like, okay, what's going on? I go in there and she had wedged.
Is that key?
Yeah, I saw big. She had wedged the black skillet against the faucet handle and into the sink. And the pressure of it stopped the water. So we were able to get to our day until we could get it without the water going in. So I always, when I saw that, I thought, she knows about cast iron skillets. She knows about science. She's a very good science math student. And
An incredible artist.
An incredible artist. And she solved a big problem. We didn't have to pay oodles and oodles of money right there. So she solved the problem. I thought, we take our know-how, we take our cultural roots, anything, and we solve problems. So I thought, this is what it was. It took me almost 10 years for people to understand what Yo Mama's house was. I went out, a person that was phenomenal to me was a woman named Milo Shetshango Blooming. And she was a woman from Chicago that had left the Black Panthers, Black nationalists, and had gotten into African spirituality. And I was at a point in my life, I had 2 small children, that nothing was working in my life. I mean, I was working for the Los Angeles Unified School District, who paid me once a month. I wasn't getting paid. There wasn't yet monthly time card in, where's the check? No check. Okay, they said, oh yeah, we see your time card, everything's okay. Go into the second month, no check. Wait a minute, I came last 2 months without money. Go into the third month, no check. By this time, I'm getting a second job. So I'm going from the Valley in Los Angeles to pick up my kids in Echo Park, to drive out to Long Beach to work a job from 6 to 10 o'clock and ran out of money after a while. I was hiding my children under my desk. My job. And it was interesting. People would come and a co-worker would shift them to around another room. My children probably spent more time in the closet or probably the fax machine or the copier and stuff. They started making art. They started gluing and pasting and making photographs. So I couldn't get paid. I didn't know what to do. So a friend said, I said, I just don't know what I did wrong. I said, I don't even get a chance to date, do nothing. So what did I do? And a friend came to me and said, would you try something that you've never tried before? I said, I would get Godzilla behind, look up sunset, whatever I have to do. Please, what did I do? And she said, okay, well, first of all, set up a table, put white cloth, put flowers on and pictures of dead people that you know. Just any random dead person, your ancestors. Okay. That was the first time I ever heard of ancestors. And I set up this table and really interesting things started happening. One of the things that started happening was I had sat on the steps with my angst of I can't get paid, I'm going to work, I don't have money for gas, food, nothing, and I'm borrowing, and all this stuff was, God, something's wrong here. If I'm not serving you right, let me know. Tell me what I need to do. I will do it. Now, I have some problems here because it sounds like Jesus is not answering me. So they would send another son, daughter, something. We have another way of doing this. And within about 2 weeks, group of girlfriends said, we're going to go for a ride and we're going to get reading. Well, I kind of do TVs and tarot cards and hand palms and that kind of stuff. So I thought, yeah, I better go find out what the heck is wrong with my life. And we want to get married again. So we go and there's this, I'm sorry, the blue black man I had ever seen in my life. big, tall, massive shoulders with beautiful blue bar, cold feet, we've not seen none of this stuff. And couldn't hardly understand what he was saying. So we go in a room and they, put up, you're on the floor on a mat, and he has all the things he does to do divination with. And he looks at me and says, none of your prayers have ever been heard. I was like, well, shit. So what is going on with me? Then he said what I needed to do. So because I didn't understand him, I had to ask somebody to help me. And this is how I met Yellow Shoshone movement. Somebody took me to her house up in the Hollywood Hills to talk about this reading I had gotten. And she said, I walked up to her house and it was all kind of African decoration, whatever. She had a Shango shrine right in the middle of the living room. And I was like, I felt like I was at home. I mean, there was some energy or something, I was at home. And she was the one that's, gave me my first reading and said, this is what you need to do. But one of the things I have to thank her for is teaching me about being African. I had never known I was African. I never known where my roots were. I have learned that I'm actually genetically DNA 89% Yoruba. So I am living what I was born.
Wow.
Okay, so I did a lot of things around spirituality. I tried everything. I know Yo Rey Kyo, that worked fine. That was great, but I still wanted something else. I tried Scientology for a week, but I couldn't stand the white folks. I'm sorry, white folks. I don't mean to disrespect you, but that was crazy. They ask you everything unearthly about yourself to set up your programming that they do. I've been in Native American things. So when I went to Ia's house, Ia means mother, or Ia means grandmother. Her first lesson to me that I was African. So this is from my book, Missing Mama, My Story of Lost Healing, Lost Sorrow and Healing. Okay, my first lesson, I was African. This insight was as stingy as a bitch slap. I hardly understood that I was American. In 1969, I took my first trip abroad. After filling in a travel form, a stewardess had informed me that my nationality was not Negro. To me, being American has always been not being white. Being Black was a sad ass old story. It imbued a natural insecurity in desolate territory, Blackness. I thought I stood on more solid ground defining myself as Negro rather than colored. I knew little about Africa. What I knew about the dark continent, its people, and its customs, I had learned from Tarzan movies, theme park, and National Geographic. I saw no correlation between the childish naked native and me or anybody else with my skin color. Unfortunately, I knew less about myself. My ignorance exposed the darkness in my own non-illuminated mind, body, and soul. Ia spoke lovingly of everything African and Black. I had always prided myself as being intelligent, well-read, well-educated, and a traveler. How could I be so smart and yet be so dumb? What can I learn at school? My head was filled with accrued information yet did not contain information about me or people who looked like me and those who lived the African American experience. As skilled as I was in mathematics or algebra, geometry, and trigonometry, the equation of who I was kept coming up -0. In the early 60s, when I was in the 8th grade, I attended a middle school in Inglewood, California. You could count the Black students on 7 fingers. 2 were my stepsisters and me. In a pack, we were able to keep chaos to a minimum. Individually, we all caught hell. I could ignore the stares, the sneers, the sobriety, and the snubs. I could tolerate being called a nigger once or twice a day. I was used to that at home. However, no adult nor teacher in more than 10 educational institutions, Black or white, had taught me one thing about being African or being of African descent. My second lesson from Ia, the dead, known as ancestors or Egun, the collective honored ancestors, continue to live and commune with the living. We needed them and they needed us. In time, they would be reborn to our living family. This information didn't alarm nor surprise me. Death had always been a constant stalker in my life. By the time I was 25, most of my known family members had passed away. My grandmother's, grandfather's, mothers, my mother's 2 sisters, 4 or 6 brothers, my father, 3 of my father's 4 sisters, his eldest brother, my grandmother's sister, 1 cousin, and my unborn son. Yet I missed and mourned mom, my mother's mother, most. I learned death was not a final act. I was still connected to her, and this eased my chronic loneliness. Eve encouraged me to build a relationship with my ancestors. She gave me the basic instruction on how to set up an ancestral shrine inside my home. The mechanics were easy. The dining room with its built-in buffet provided the best place. It was tucked away from traffic of the living, yet it was visible as a display of family photographs and a vase of flowers. If one looked closer, they might have noted that all the people in the photographs were deceased. The names of my family members were written on tiny pieces of paper. There was a glass of undisturbed water and a constantly burning white candle. Sometimes there was a glass of rum or gin or the residue of a cigar. A newborn baby T-shirt and a transformer toy was placed in a prominent position on the shrine. Additional items such as a set of large ivory dominoes and a deck of cards came and went. On Sundays, I cooked a lot of food and I always set an extra plate at the head of our table. My ancestors were invited to confess. This ritual felt very natural to me.
I want us to put our hands together once again. I don't want to cut us off right there because I think, Wisdom, if you had one thing you wanted to wrap up, but I want to allow some time for the audience to be able to ask questions and engage in a full conversation with the rest of us. Is that okay to?
Yes,
Okay.
and let's go to, let's make sure that we get to the audience.
Yep, I will bring the, raise your hand and I'll bring the mic around. No questions?
Any comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. I just want to thank both of you. This is so amazing. Hearing your stories. I know your story and yet I just learned your story, wisdom. And, you know, I learned so much. I think what Elder Amoke said when she said how we learn from our young people. And I try to embrace that all the time and just listening to how you became who you are was just a beautiful, beautiful story. And my ears and my scalp were burning as you read that poem, because Lord knows, ooh, I've always had a lot of hair and my mother has always had a straightening comb. And so I thank you for your wisdom. Elder Amoke, I am going to get to know you better. I just have to say thank you for your truth and your spirit, because I felt it so much. And it really reminded me of many stories that I've had. So I thank you. I want to have a conversation with you about the Shrine of the Black Madonna.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when she said it, I thought about you.
Yeah,
I want to have a conversation. So,
I didn't see the shrine. I saw, when I went to Europe, that's when I started knowing Black.
About the
We're
Black
big in
Madonna.
Black.
yeah.
So yes,
Yeah, you'd be glad to do that.
and Sister Leah taught me about the shrine of the Black Madonna.
So, yeah, and when you said that, I was just like, I'm sitting here like this, I was just like, oh, wow. So just a blessing to be in your presence and to hear your story. And I thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Hi, y'all. Thank y'all
Hey.
for sharing your stories and your journey as writers and world travelers. I'm curious, this question is for both of y'all who've done a lot of different kinds of writing and a lot of different kinds of creativity. Is there like a project that's like on your heart on your spirit that you feel called to in this moment, whether it's a specific project or just like, oh, like I've never tried writing like this, or I've never explored this kind of thing. So just like, knowing the legacy of creativity y'all have done, is there anything that's kind of like calling you forward in this moment?
Yeah. Would you like to answer first, or?
Yeah, I'm at a point where, I'm at a point where I feel like my creativity is like gamma ray. I just feel like I can only have enough time and ability to keep up with what I need to do. But I'm being very pressed by my ancestors to write a story that is for healing. And I know the story is important because just having a few conversations with a few people, the eye rolling, keep sucking and the backing away is telling me, yeah, we need to go there. I went to my spiritual advisors and said, you can have story number 1, story number 2, project number 3, which one should I do? And all 3 of them said project number 1. So I'm working on with a grant from MSAB, Minnesota State Arts Board, on beginning this next play, how to redeem monsters. So how do we look at the monsters among us? And we know we have it in our family. We have had them for generations. And I'm looking at how do you, the difference between where wisdom is at her age and where I'm at now. I didn't have the courage to talk. I didn't have the space, the locations, the community, the incidents of George Floyd, the family, the whole world going crazy, that our voices were being amplified. I was still fighting with Black men over, can I talk? So it was, I had a different kind of thing. The door has been open for you to come behind me. So it behooves me as an elder to help those that are coming behind me, because I'm not going to be here forever. So how do I do that? How do I give that to the youth? How do I do that? But the story of how to redeem monsters is looking at, they're not going anywhere until there's healing everywhere. Not just Black. We can heal all day long, Black folks, but it's a deep groove to keep digging out the roots on that one. So it's got to be constant, consistent, and everybody. Not just the elders need to get their crap together, or the babies. It's the little ones too. Because there's 3-year-olds on fucking down out there in the street. I know I would be. I wouldn't even be able to say that in my dreams, right? As an adult, let alone as a child who's sitting out there. So those are the things that behoove me to write the hard stories. And God knows I went straight to therapy to see exactly what I had to write this story. So like, no, I need some hand holding on this one. So it will be a play, and we'll have a companion piece of a 15-minute puppet performance. So some people can't stay in there for an hour and 30 minutes. They can get a 15-minute version.
All right. Awesome. I was just thinking, one of the things I really want to do is naked stages.
Yeah.
Pillsbury House, and
Yes.
I really want to do that maybe next year. 2022. So a lot of the work that I do is with, I'm always mothering, I'm always educating, I'm always empowering, I'm always, I went to a workshop in LA, chaperoning a youth field trip. And we did like an improvisational thing, and the guy asked this question on a piece of paper, like, what are you leaving behind? And my first reflection, my first instinct was warriors. Because since my beginning, I've been so drenched in this way of war that in America, as Black people, we were always under the gun. And so then I'm thinking, well, what else is there beyond war? When the war is over, what else could there be, right? There needs to be builders and there needs to be healers, right? And so I'm invested in that. But I also, now in particular, my ancestors are calling me to be still a little bit and dig in. I think I've come from a generation of some busybodies. Or some generations of some busybodies, right? And because there's so much work to be done. And I know that part of my purpose is doing that work. And so that's something that I have to do. That's part of my story, but it's not the totality of me. The intimate part of me, I need art, right? To really truly see myself. That's how I need art. Art lets me get in touch with myself, and connect with other human beings in that way, right? And so I needed to still be human. To be human, I need art. And so I'm looking to do a show, a play, expand more in the performance realm. I've done some of that. In 2022, I had the most crazy year ever. And I was doing so many things. I was like checking things off my list, like, yep, But I was getting codes like, lay down. And I it's too much to even dive into, but something that's always coming to mind is this 444, the signal and the cure. Because I kept receiving these messages, and these signals and these protection in that year, which allowed me to be here today. I've had surgery, I've been hospitalized and got back up and just keep on stepping and marching, but it's a lot. So I really want to unpack some of the things that I've gone through. You guys heard a snippet, but my life has been just interesting since the beginning. At like 5 years old, my apartment was burglarized. Well, not burglarized. There were 3 men, with guns at the door asking, where's the dope? So there's a lot that I can unpack and need to unpack. And I need this art to breathe. Yeah, to allow myself the space that I can also just be without the duty.
Right. Do we have any other?
I just want to say thank you for this. I feel like I'm walking away with so much. I'm you, I grew up in your era, but I'm also you, artsy. Got a lot I've wanted to do, and just being here listening gives me the motivation to take what's embedded in me and get it out there, and to actually come in contact with, or now have the opportunity that I'm retired, sort of.
Yay!
Sort of.
Retirement.
Not full, I was 40, but to actually tap into and become the two of you. I'm just very, very impressed, and really glad I came. And hopefully we'll be attending a whole lot more. And so that's my goal, get out, see what's going on, and this, so I'm doing this, I'm here, and I'm loving it, and thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you. And shout out to all the incredible educators in the room and the artists. We all have that in common: mothers, educators, artists in the room. Loretta Hall was the person that was just speaking, and she makes these beautiful, she's so crafty, she's an incredible artist, and she makes these incredible dolls in the ritual, in the line, in the heritage of doll making. And so I know that, what's the name of your business? Little Seeds. So look out for that, Little Seeds. That's gonna be coming. She makes these incredible dolls. My mom was like, no, you're an artist. She's a master teacher too. She taught English for lots of years, but she's an incredible artist. And so I'm so happy that she's retired and leaning into that side of her more. Yeah.
I'm gonna take the opportunity to ask you two to do something. First, I want to thank you. Both of you have a spirit of giving that's just so full and rich, and that actually just unpacks as you sit there and embrace the rest of us. So I feel like part of your stories are part of my stories, and I really appreciate just being in the room and hearing, some of that. I know you said a snippet, but you're both also some huge leaders in the community. The work that you do, I know you both have some tables over there in terms of some things you brought with you. Can you talk a little about what's over there and what people can, find, how they can get in touch with you, how they can connect with what you're doing and the movement in terms of the art of healing that I think our community is actually embracing through literacy, through creative arts, through all the different bodies that we're occupying, because we're not just, I mean, we're mamas, you know, but for a while, I think we thought we were just mamas. And it was never just mamas, you know, and so I want you to talk a little about what you brought with you and what you're leaving to share with us.
Okay, so she's saying we've been long-winded up here. I'm saying I can speak to this person forever, probably. So that's one of the things I want to touch on. Sister Raquel said about mamas. Mothering has been such an important part of my identity. I always knew that I would be a mother. And when I traveled alone to Africa, I realized that I had set some bags down because people were encountering me in different ways. And that taught me about myself being solo and single, and people were seeing me just as a woman, which was interesting and much needed as well. So I am the founder and executive director of Black, Bold, and Brilliant. Black, Bold, and Brilliant is an affirmation. It's a movement to call our people into who we really are, where we come from, and what we will be in the future. One of the things that we have coming up is our annual internship for Black youth. We do a lot of intergenerational work. We hold sacred space for Black people to come together and build and dream about our futures together and create the community that we deserve together. And so we have a summer internship called The Future is Ours, where we invest in Black youth empowerment through education, through getting reconnected with nature, through activism, and through the arts. And they have a service project that they always do. Last year, our youth were tutoring Black youth at North Regional Library in the summer. The year before that, we handed out goods to folks in North Minneapolis and gave back to school drive and things like that. So really activating Black youth to realize their brilliance, who they are called to be, and that they have the power to positively shape, even if they just shape one life outside of themselves, that's enough. And so that's the work. And so we have t-shirts that say Black, Bold, and Brilliant. We have them as part of our fundraiser today. There's a QR code over there. The t-shirts are $27 or $30, depending on size. But we would greatly appreciate that, because everything that we do for Black youth, we usually incentivize them with a stipend, right? And so that takes resources, a lot of time, a lot of money. And so you would be sowing a great seed by supporting our work in our organization, because we realize that their time is called, their attention is called in so many different ways. There's so many distractions. And so we really want to provide an incentive for them to get connected and know what we are about and what really they are about and what they're capable of.
I brought over my book, Missing Mama, that was self-published 14 years ago. I'd say between that and Google, I don't have any secrets. So anything you want to know about me is probably in the book or on Google. It's not a pity party. My mom died when I was little, young. I don't really remember her. She was more came to me in spirit than I can physically remember her. But if the story was told in chapters with the heads titles of the women, significant women in my life, who stepped up or attempted to step up or got stuck with me and did the best they could. But it taught me a lot about forgiveness and redemption. It taught me a lot of what does that mean. Some people are actually human monsters and you can say, okay, I forgive you, and the pain goes away, or you don't ever forget, but can you live with that? And what does redemption really mean? I think both of them have to go hand in hand. I think they're baby the twins. I brought note cards. When I finally started making art, that was not writing. You have two note cards in there. One is the realm of the ancestors. The Yoruba look at family life is the circle of life is you're born, you live, you're a child, you become an adult, you become an elder. Your goal is to become an esteemed elder, like you're giving things, you're giving back, then you become an ancestor. Your reverend is an ancestor. So if no one is speaking your name, lighting candles, feeding you cigars, and telling your story, you die twice. It's a done deal. So you want to revere your ancestors, even the ones that weren't so good, you know, the ones that just didn't quite make it, it just wasn't hardly functioning. Let's give them a separate chance and pray for their elevation that they come back into the family. You always believe most people are going back into the family. Or you could have, and I have prints, Prints. I have prints of the same card, so you can get the prints are 25 and the book is 20 and the cards are $5. So,
Thank y'all so much. I am the fool that has to tell you to stop.
all right.
Before I say more, and invite you to mingle with this little bit of time we got left. Carolyn has asked me to make sure that the form that you are being asked to fill out, the survey, gets back to Lydia. Anybody from there who had it in mind? So make sure to do that. Also, as I said before, those of you who came in late, my name is Dapu. I'm the curator of the Gibbons Collection of African American Literature and Life here at the U. And we have some material out. One of the things that Carolyn said at the beginning, we're talking about connecting that experience at Black Table Arts, making that connection because there is continuity. We are deeply connected in this room. I see Frogtown and Rondo in the central neighborhood and the north side and more represented here. We brought Black spaces into this other space where we keep the evidence. I've curated a little bit of an exhibition for you here of material by and about Black women exclusively, and including y'all are talking about Black Madonna, our Black Madonna, Phyllis Wheatley, first edition mom for Black Madonnas on this side of the Atlantic. So including Phyllis Wheatley and Sojourner Truth. And so I welcome you. I would ask that if you need to touch, because often people do, did you cross the atrium to the bathrooms and wash your hands, right? And then you're welcome. I would be humble to you in business, but that's my job. Thanks again. We're trying to do more of this. We're trying to do more of this, and so stay tuned. Give it up again though for our guests. All right.
I just want to reiterate one more time that we do have refreshments over here. And if you want to look at the exhibition that Dabu put out,